by the experts. One from the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Henry Sebukera, the Technical Advisor Budget. Thank you for joining us and a very good evening.
Thank you.
Julius Mukunda from the Civil Society Budget Advocacy Group. Good to have you and a very good evening.
Thank you to be here and good evening, viewers.
Honorable Semuju Ibrahim Nganda, the Shadow Minister of Finance, spokesperson for PFF, and Member of Parliament, Kira Municipality. Good to have you and a very good evening.
Thank you, Njara.
Well, the economy has taken off, according to Minister Kasaija, as he closed the budget reading. Do you agree?
You see, the economists have theories, and they use those theories to paint pictures. Sometimes I made a response in Parliament. I have also today issued a statement responding to the budget. The ordinary people, the lives of the ordinary people hasn't changed much. And you can read this and many other budgets, and their lives are not going to change. In my presentation as Shadow Minister for Finance, I told government that this budget was not financing, was not meeting the social, economic challenges Uganda is facing. And I did give figures as they are captured in the population and housing census. You have a population of 45.9 million. 62% of that population, which is about 28 million people, are in agriculture. The figures, official figures, show, they keep changing, that about 39% of the population are in subsistence agriculture. 39%. That is about 14 million people. In the budget, that the money supposed directly to help the 14 million people who are in subsistence agriculture is 1 trillion. Each parish will get 100 million, which they will share. If you allow me, I made a response built on two areas. This budget of 72.3 trillion, 27 trillion is going to be debt servicing. But I also, finance didn't provide us with enough information. They tend to hide it. But a bit of it we are able to establish. Because when they tell you they are going to debt service 27 trillion, which I think is about 38% of the budget, then you need to break down the debts that they are paying. What is surprising is that Uganda borrows money to help private people pay their debt. Because
let me hear this again.
Government borrows money to help private people pay their debts. In this budget, you have 60 billion that has been given to ROCO. They mismanage their company. But we've provided them with 60 billion to go and, because they owe banks about 400 billion shillings. So in the next, I think 5 years, we will be helping ROCO to pay their debt. You have money that you are giving to Democratic Republic of Congo because of our indiscipline when we went to Democratic Republic of Congo and we were taken to the International Court of Justice and lost the case. We are supposed to give Congo a total of 1.2 trillion shillings. So we are paying about 246 billion every year. It is in the budget that Kasaija has read. We've given in this budget 465 billion to Pineti. constructing Entebbe, constructing Iruboa Hospital. In total, we will give Pineti, because we have so far given about 700 billion. So we are adding up 465, which will bring the total amount we've given to Pineti to about 1.2 trillion. In the budget, you're also giving Mubaje, the Mufti, 14 billion to pay a debt because he sold Muslim property in December to 2 buyers, and one of them went to court and had been obtained an order to go and attach the National Mosque. So we've now put money for Mubaje in the budget to go and pay debt. So when finance presents a debt servicing as 27 trillion, you need to break it down for the citizen to understand.
Yeah, but you seem to be painting a gloomy picture.
Yes, because you see,
where is the beautiful side of this budget? To the extent that
you have a budget of
local
72.
revenue.
You have a budget of 72 trillion. 27 trillion is going to on debt servicing. 8.5 trillion paying salaries for about 400,000 people who work for government. And then in the budget you have again for the same people about 4 or even more trillion to facilitate them to do their work, buy them vehicles, money for donation, money for fuel, money for workshops, money for entertainment, special meals and drinks. I keep referring to Parliament where I serve. You go to a committee of Parliament, MPs were fairly paid. But in the morning they are going to ferry food, mandazi, commando, everything. You're supposed to be 35 people, only 7 attend the meeting. In the end, I don't know where that food goes. But in the budget, you have about 200 billion shilling for special.
For mandas.
For special, they call them, they give them names, artificial names. They make them look very sweet. Special meals and drinks. So you're going to spend about 12 trillion on government employees numbering about 400,000 who are less than 1% of the population. So you have 27 debt servicing, 12 trillion, 16% of the budget for government employees, and then you have 7 friends from Pineti to Roko to Mubaje to everybody. In the end, if you look at the structure of the budget as presented and was read today, you have about 28, either 28, 29, which is recurrent money for the items I have mentioned, and if you furniture, what. The money for development in this budget is 6 trillion.
Well, I'll get back to you. I'll invite the expert from the ministry, Mr. Henry Sebukera.
Yes.
You are part of the drafting and everything, to the extent that when I look at the theme, we're looking at full monetization of the Ugandan economy through commercial agriculture, industrialization, expanding and broadening services, digital transformation, and market access. But the key areas that you raise here are given a paltry budget. What explains the contrast?
Thank you, Simon. And maybe just to correct the question, the key areas of the budget have actually been prioritized and well financed. And that can be actually elaborated with numbers. I wanted to first put the numbers correct, then I can come to the question. First, we have a 72.4 trillion budget for the next financial year, 25-26.
It was, to be exact, 72.36.
Exactly. So you would wish to add even other zeros and numbers. But if you want to make it a bit parsimonious, you would say 72.4. 36, okay, you know, depending on how many decimals you want to add to that. But out of that budget, what we have to spend on activities of government, both development and recurrent activities, is actually 43.6 trillion out of the 72.4 trillion. Now, the rest of the money is going to areas of debt servicing
27
as partly put, but I want to put also the 27 into perspective. Part of the 27 is about 10 trillion, which is not the debt servicing, but the domestic debt refinancing, which is just a restructuring of our debt, that we can substitute short-term debt for long-term debt. So that's why I wanted to put the 27 trillion figure into perspective. But Simon,
Making it worse.
If you allow me to speak to the prioritization of the budget, especially the context you've given of the theme, out of that 43 trillion that is available to finance activities of the budget, 4.1 trillion is going to finance what we call the ATMs. As Uganda is driving towards attaining a $500 billion economy, it has prioritized what we are calling the ATMs and enablers. Those are the engines that are going to drive us to the $500 billion economy. The key question, what are the ATMs? The ATMs include agro-industrialization, tourism development, minerals, including oil and gas. And then we have the tourism development. We have the science, technology, and innovation, including ICT, but also our creative arts. And if you read the budget, these have been allocated 4.1 trillion. And we could go into the specifics of exactly what is being financed within the 4.1 trillion. Now, out of the 43.9 trillion that is available to finance activities, about 32 trillion is available to finance enablers. And what are the enablers? Enablers are those areas that are going to help us harness the opportunities in the ATMs. And here we are talking about, infrastructure development, education, health, literally investing in the people of Uganda. But I could go even a little bit into detail into that. If you look at our enablers, actually investing in the people of Uganda is the highest financed activity within the budget. We have about 11.4 trillion that is invested, that is actually provided for investing in the people of Uganda, and about 8 trillion, if you round it off, in infrastructure. And of course, security is our fundamental. So we provide
9 point something trillion?
Because it is the bedrock upon which we build the economy.
9.9, right?
9.9 billion.
Trillion, yes.
9.9 trillion. But I wanted to make a point that it is very good, and I wanted to end with this point. It is very important for us to understand the structure of our budget as Ugandans. It is very easy for us to say we are investing so little in development and so much in recurrent expenditure. If you look at the structure of our recurrent expenditure of 32 trillion, much of it is actually going to buying medicines. We categorize our medicines, the 700, almost 800 billion we spend in buying medicines under national medical stores is actually money we report as recurrent expenditure. The 1 trillion that we invest in PDM activities, which is actually supporting the people in agriculture and agro-industry, is also reported as development, as recurrent expenditure. So the financing we give to Uganda Development Bank, UDC, the capitalization of our financial institutions, and other wealth creation funds amounting to about 3.1 trillion is also categorized as recurrent expenditure. So I wanted to reiterate your question that actually this budget is prioritizing financing to wealth creation, to enhance job creation for Ugandans, with industrialization being the vehicle to achieve that.
Well, thank you very much. We're also joined by Honorable Geoffrey Ekanya, Member of Parliament, Toro Municipality. Good to have you.
Thank you very much. Toro County. No.
Toro County, they're quite a number. Sorry for the oversight. Well, Julius, rosy figures budget rituals and everything, what adds up and what doesn't add up in this budget 2025-2026, and does it pass the mark of a pro-people budget?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I mean, I've looked at these numbers for a very long time, and what I've decided to do is to move away from this recurrent expenditure and development expenditure, because it is extremely misleading. Because previously we'd say, hey, recurrent expenditure, these operations, and then you find people have put their medicine. This is recurrent expenditure. Then you find the interest payments. It's also recurrent expenditure. But then that's where you find the special meals, donations, travel abroad. So what we have decided is that let us look at productive items in the budget and those that are non-productive, and that can give us a picture of where this budget can take us. So you want to look at productive items as those that are likely to address the ordinary person's needs. Those items that are likely to, where an ordinary person is likely to interface, probably directly. Even if it's indirect, but it's like a public good that, you know, people are going to benefit from this. So take, for example, I would say that a salary of a permanent secretary and the salary of a teacher and a medical doctor, I would refer you to see that my doctors and teachers are very highly paid. The permanent secretary can do critical work to balance the books. I want a traffic officer, for example, really. So once I'm in the traffic officer, I know, yeah, here returns to investment. And
so you're interpreting it ordinarily?
Yes, that's what I want. But at the end of the day, the ordinary person, that's what he's going to look at. The ordinary person probably is going to say, where are the seedlings? Do I have them? Are they the right seedlings? That's the extension worker. Is the extension worker near me? Can I be able to consult and I get the best advice? So based on that, then you begin to follow the money and say, okay, where is this money going? And I think that's for me where I begin to say, okay, I think we are having some challenges, although here we are progressing. So now, once those items are put in place and you put it aside and put the other one that are not productive, then you begin to ask yourself, so how do we balance in terms of who gets what and who doesn't get what? What I've realized right now is that there are a number of very good proposals in this budget. One thing I saw today was that there was a very huge attempt to account for this end of the financial year. And that is something that has been missing in some of the speeches. A huge attempt to say, but this financial year, we have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now it's up to us to go and do the clarification, to go and find out whether those things actually have been done. Two is that there's some proposals that you like. I saw something like Oksevinga. And I think it's something that we've been pushing for us from the civil society to say, if the ordinary person has got his phone, why can't he also buy bonds? So I'm hoping that now we are going to have some bonds of 1,000, 10,000, so that they are broken down, and the person can save and also buy bonds. And I thought that was a very good idea. I have seen we are commercial diplomacy has been also one of the things I have also been promoting, to say that these embassies, really, for me, they should only have one main job: to look for markets for our products, period. If you are an embassy in a foreign land, we should facilitate you enough, and that's probably so that you look for the market for our products. And once you get it, you come back and tell us, I have got the market for squared watermelon. And then now government goes back and say, farmers, the other big watermelons we like not to sell them. Now we need to start working on squared watermelon.
There is something very key. Perhaps you could come in here. Minister Kasaija speaks of 10-fold economic growth in 15 years. Do you think that is being overambitious, or it is realistic?
No, being ambitious is okay. Being ambitious is okay, but it depends on what we're going to do about it. All of us have dreams. It's perfect to dream that we're going to have a $500 billion economy. It is how we are going to change the way we do things. If we expect that the way we are doing things currently is going to take us to a $5 billion economy, I think we shall
$500 billion
economy. I think we shall still be dreaming. to achieve that, fundamentally, a lot of things must change. Because we have the potential and capacity to reach there. You can't be, I mean, look at the dairy industry. We can be able to sell milk to Algeria, you know, and the huge potential that is just in only that one country. Just imagine if we have been able to get a market for all other Arab nations who would like to take our milk, and we're able to help our farmers do that, what that would be. But if you come back home, then that's when Katemba starts. A farmer is going to spray the cows that they have ticks, but instead of ticks dying and falling off, they start getting fattened. They get fattened. In the morning, you spray, in the afternoon, the tick is usually even bigger than how you left it in the morning. Simply because of our inability to enforce discipline on ensuring that we don't have fake inputs into the market.
Okay, before I get to Honorable Kanya, to what extent does the budget speak to austerity and the fight against corruption?
Though I think the fight against corruption, we seem to be losing it. Why? Because corruption has also changed in the way it has been in the last 5 years. It's now, we regularize it, like you plan for it, you budget for it, it goes to parliament, everybody looks at it, and now you go on execution. So if you have this bottle of water and it is being supplied to different government departments at different prices by the same supplier, that is corruption already. Because if the market price is 1,000 and the government is buying it at 5,000, you have done it. It's a done deal. So I think for corruption, the minister really, we need more than what we are currently doing to fix.
How about austerity? Does the budget have an element of a government that now wants to be frugal and work within the
I am
framework?
yet to get the savings you have made from rationalization. Because I remember as we were rationalizing, then that's when we brought the post of the assistant RDCs. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, we said we should reduce on duplication and running cost of government, but then we are creating more costs. So the benefits of rationalization, I'm yet to see them. I'm yet to see the benefits of rationalization.
Thank you. Honorable Ekanya, thank you for joining us. Well, we're looking at a 72.36 trillion budget, an increment, a slight increment of 0 point something. You could help me, Henry, here.
From 71.9.
Yeah, from 71 to 72 point.
Yeah. So
0.5.
a few billion is increased.
Is that something plausible for the country to say there is growth, remarkable growth, and the fact that part of it, a huge chunk, 30 point something trillion, is to be raised domestically?
You see, for the last 4 years, you know, ordinarily this is a budget that would be driven for government to account for the manifesto of the last 4 years. Now we are heading to another election. But because the numbers have not been adding up, the budget for the last 4 years, the numbers have not been adding up from the budget reading to final budget implementation. That's why you see the numbers in terms of from 71 to 72.3, and I can assure you that by the end of this financial year, we might have supplementary and the budget might be revised by even 4 or 5 trillion shillings, and the number may go up. But you see, by and large, in terms
So
of...
you anticipate it's going to 76?
It might go to 76, 75 there, because this election year, and even for the last 2 financial years, numbers have been increasing in terms of new supplementaries. Part of the reason why the numbers, they give figures that are impressive, so that they can use within the 3%, they can get the resource that they need for issues that they do not want us to debate and discuss it. But by and large, the politics determine the budget priority worldwide. But the politics of this country cannot determine the budget priority, because oppositions have been weakened deliberately. So you find that government sets up the budget priority for it to survive, because there are no strong institutions that can challenge A serious government, knowing that we are heading to election year, will know that what are the key issues that will determine the victory in next election. Issues of job, issues of inflation, issues of market, issues of infrastructure. But in this budget, most of the item my brother is talking about are the 3 trillion, 5 trillion for infrastructure. Most of those programs are multi-year programs. They read it in the 2024, 2025, now it's 2025, 2026. These are multi-year programs that are rolled over. And in terms of implementation is about 30, even 20%, or even zero in some programs. So Matia Kasaya talking about 5 trillion for education. Some of these are World Bank, ADB funded programs that have stayed in the shell for the last 5 years. Or 3-4 years.
You want to say there is a lot of deception in the budget?
I'm telling you facts. The records are there. Loans that were approved that government has not implemented for the last 3-4 years, and government is paying commitment fees. It's huge. The records are there. But by and large, then you go down to the real life of people. Yes, poverty level has decreased from 25 to 16. But if you go down in my village in Merikiti, more people are sleeping hungry. But you see, these are aggregate numbers of few people who are in Kampala, few people who might be in some parts of Mbale, some parts of Jinja. But the real life access down there, in terms you talk of allocation 1 trillion, roughly for drugs. But how many people can access part of that 1 trillion? The resource will be released. Part of it will disappear at National Medical Store. Part of it will disappear on the way to National Medical Store. Maybe about 40% will reach National Medical Store. And even that 40%, some technical people will take, you find that about 20 or 30% will be accessed by the ordinary poor people. So most Ugandans, in terms of knowing that government is going to read the budget, remember when we were growing, those days, people would tune TV, people would tune the radio, knowing that, yes, we are going to allocate this resource. We are going to have boreholes in our village repaired. But call the LOC ones, and you heard the president talk about the geese of the roads. The LOC ones will tell you that in schools, as of now, government is paying for those teachers, but children are being chased away from schools. There are no shocks in schools. You get the point. There are no toilets in most of these schools, and yet resources will have been released. So in terms of accessibility and population benefiting from the figures, in terms of at macro level, it is very impressive. I can tell you, we are doing very well at macro level. Inflation is under control. The shilling is doing very well. In fact, I met some investors, and some Uganda do not want no longer to sign contracts. About a year ago, people are preferring to sign contracts to be paid in USD. But as of today, most business people prefer to sign to be paid in UGX because the shilling has really appreciated. Part of the reason the shilling has appreciated is because of good macroeconomic policy. There I give government credit. Because you see, in terms of our import receipts and export receipts, we get more than $10 billion coming in, and others are coming in informally because of open capital account. Refugees, in Makinde where you stay, you have all these Eritreans, all these Somalis, bring in foreign currency. You go to other countries like Angola, Burundi, very tight capital account, you cannot bring money and take it out. That is beautiful. But down in terms of real population, feeling the impact of the budget, the situation is totally different. So, government needs, the purpose upon which we agree to declare the total figure of debt and the total collection was to increase the level of transparency. Beautiful.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Honorable Semuju, how do we go beyond the figures to the reality?
Yeah.
What makes the budget this year's 2025-26 unique is that it's election year. And we've also just had the scrapping of some of the agencies, the RAPEX.
You see, the rationalization, if you speak to government people quietly, they were driven into it without enough and necessary studies. I'll give you
Since 2018?
I'll give you an example. WEC in Entebbe was merged with the Wildlife Authority. And we are told they are going to reduce on staff and budget. People who are looking at after those animals in Entebbe, all the numbers remain. It became, I think, a department, but their salaries went up because they were merged with the UWA, whose salaries were higher. So immediately the budget went up. That was the case with the population, which I think went to National Planning Authority and others. When we are meeting government people, these people in finance, they will come here and posture that there was $1 trillion shilling to save. You then ask them, so if you saved it, where have you allocated it? So some of the policies, and as civil society has said, the president now has 650 RDCs. Each of those RDCs will require a brand new pickup, some policemen and secretaries. So the budget of State House inevitably now goes up because in the past it has averaged about 500 billion. It is this financial year it is hit $1 trillion shilling. So if you want to understand these figures, you go to the population. You have 62% of the population, as I said earlier, in agriculture. That's about 28 million people. He has told you that the priority of agro-industrialization or agro-processing, tourism, science, and that they are going to put there 4 trillion. In a budget of 72 trillion, they are going to spend 4 trillion on the key priorities in the budget. That tells you the story. But if you want to break it down, then you go to the actual expenditure. I have told, look at local government. Local government, this financial year we are concluding, local government has a budget of about 6 trillion. 5.4 trillion is salaries and other recurring. The money that is available to go for development in local government is about 600 billion. And that is evident. I saw you here, you were profiling Guru. I was in Guru City, I was in Guru district. The reason their budget went up slightly was because you had that money borrowed for the infrastructure. There is no money for maintenance.
That's use bid, right?
Yes, there is no money for maintenance in all the subsequent budgets. When you exhaust the money for constructing roads, they are not going to be maintained. And that's what has befallen most of the roads now in Uganda, in Kampala. We have now just borrowed money from the World Bank for the Kampala Metropolitan to do some roads. But these municipalities that are benefiting, they have no money for maintenance. So the figures in the budget, when they are thrown in your faces, you'll actually think that they mean something. Let me give you an example, Njala. If you look at the money we earn, the foreign exchange, at the moment, I think we earn more from selling of gold, which gold is stolen from Congo, but it's just trafficked through Uganda. And that has been part of the reason the shilling has stabilized. Because the gold stolen from Congo is trafficked through Uganda. They go and sell and return with the physical dollars in aircrafts at Entebbe Airport. The Congolese then use the dollars in our markets here. That's why at one time when they put pressure on the president, they didn't want to pay taxes. They said because they can now traffic through Rwanda and through Tanzania. So this is also artificial. But okay, the gold becomes our #1 foreign exchange earner. Then it is followed by tourism. The point that I want to make is that remittance from Ugandans working outside now becomes #3. And here is the problem. You go to the Middle East, Dubai alone, Pakistan sells mango worth $100 million to Pakistan. I mean, Pakistan sells mango worth $100 million to Dubai. The last time I visited Dubai, they now have even Kenyan mango, and they are labeled Kenyan mango. What is available in all these markets in the Middle East where they have a lot of money? You even see an American president visiting Saudi Arabia, visiting Qatar, because they have a lot of money. We are only excelling in exporting their maids. That's the biggest export that these technical advisors budget provide. Exporting maids and drivers and askaris to the Middle East. I think now we've hit more than 1 million maids we are exporting. Pakistan and Kenya exporting their mango. You have 62% of your population in agriculture. And in the official reports from finance, from UBOS, we are only of the 62%, 28 million people are in agriculture, only 2% are doing irrigation. The rest are still hoi kwa. Uganda receives the highest amount of rain in the world. Every 50 kilometers that you will travel, you will find a water body, either a lake or a river. But we cannot exploit, we cannot move that water to farms. So as a result, when you have a smallest change in the weather condition, you are in a crisis. What government should have been providing? I mean,
how much was allocated to agriculture?
1.8 trillion.
1.8.
6 trillion.
1.86.
Yeah.
But that's the key priority in the budget. And then you have the president, this financial year, at his residence, State House, he has 1 trillion, including 500 billion classified.
And the parliament has 1.3.
Parliament, I think about 1 trillion. Yeah, 1 trillion, that's the budget of parliament. Of course, I have told you here many times, if I had the opportunity, I would use that parliament by more than 60%. I have told you part of the budget, because you're going to look at the budget of all these institutions.
That would be not enough.
Don't forget what this money does. You have money that is going to do workshops and seminars, money for donation. Travel abroad. You have travel inland.
For parliament?
No, for all the government agencies. Travel inland. These people you see in pickups going to check on their animals in Ankole Maine. 976 billion travel inland. Consultancy, 633 billion. Remember, agriculture, what did he say they have provided?
1.8.
Now
1.86.
Travel inland, 976. Special meals and drinks, 492 billion. Fuel, 450 billion. Workshops and seminars, 296. Welfare and entertainment, 207
billion.
Yes. Vehicle maintenance, 171 billion. Donation, 168. Beddings, clothing and footwear, 140, and the list goes on. If they give you a broad figure and you don't interrogate it, they will say that they have put money in agriculture, and you actually think that money has gone in agriculture, when the bulk is salary. And that's why I started with the wages. How much are we going to be spending on wages? And when I was making a presidential parliament, even asked, who are we employing? Because Kenya recently changed their policy, and they said they will now prioritize technical as opposed to support staff. If you look at the number, the 400,000 people who are working for government in Uganda, you may actually reduce them by more than 60. Majority are just useless. You look at a place like a State House, where we pay for cooks, people who are looking after the president's cows, etc. They are all on the payroll. Instead of having extension workers, in the budget you have 21 billion for General Salary's operation wealth creation that is going to be supervising PDM. Yet the policy is that the money for PDM should go to the account of the last beneficiary, and then they will choose what they do using that money, because that money is a revolving fund that is supposed to be recovered. So if you don't go down to understand the details of where the money finally ends, they will tell you agriculture 1.8, and you will go home to sleep thinking that actually that 1.8 has gone into agriculture.
Well,
it will end up in Kampala constructing apartments.
We'll still be asking, do figures lie? We take a break. 2025-2026 budget and what the forecasts tell about the state of affairs should Ugandans brace themselves for tight times as now government seeks to get more money from local revenue. And how tenable is it? Well, Henry, we're looking at a budget that speaks so well of agriculture, that has a lot of hope in agriculture, yet the investment is very minimal and dismal to say the least. What a contradiction.
Thank you, Simon. And that's a very good question, I would say. I think it's very important for us as government to actually explain more about the structure of our budget. Before I get to that, in particular on agriculture, let me start with the general structure of the budget. Now, while we see a budget that seems not to have grown significantly, in real terms, the budget has actually significantly grown. We have a budget of about 72.4 trillion, increasing from about 71.9, maybe about 500 billion increase. But I want you to recall that in the budget for the year we are ending, we had about 7.78 trillion that we are clearing the Bank of Uganda debt. Now, all of that money that we are using, all of the money that we had allocated to pay the Bank of Uganda debt has now been used to actually allocate to priorities.
You might need to answer.
So in
you might need to answer
him. I'm coming to that, and I've not lost it. Now, we have had these discussions with Honorable Semuju a number of times in the committee, so I'll come to it. I know why he's asking. So, but the message I wanted to pass is that absolutely the budget has significantly increased. We have about 8 trillion additional investment in key priorities. Now, I also wanted to answer the question of the structure of budget. Now, I want you to note that, for example, our investment in agriculture of 1.86 does not include the money we are putting in PDM of 1 trillion. But where is money for PDM going? It's actually going to the farmers.
You may actually not trace it.
And the government has put in place very strong mechanisms to actually trace beneficiaries by national identification number. And for example, right now, Simon, if you are interested in knowing a beneficiary in your village of PDM, you are able to trace using an application.
Henry.
And for example,
Henry,
yes.
If a beneficiary in my village, my parish, we have not got PDM, but if the neighboring parish got the PDM money and bought iron sheets and put up a house, do you call that agriculture?
No, what I wanted to tell you is that the numbers, if you look at the numbers, actually more than 80% of PDM finance has actually gone to agricultural enterprises, and we have the data. If
do you have an effective tracking mechanism for
exactly, this? There is a Zaidi application that actually you are able to access the beneficiary by name, by national identification number, and by enterprise. So there may be a few isolated cases like my comrade and friend, Honorable Kanya is saying.
So do you want to say that PDM is the magic bullet for agriculture in the 2025-2026 budget?
Remember, Honorable Semuju raised the question, raised a very important issue that we still have, although he said 39, it is 33% of Ugandans still stuck in the subsistence economy. So the silver bullet that the PDM is giving us is to actually target that 33% of Ugandans that are still stuck in the subsistence economy. And that's what makes PDM a very important component of our agro-industrialization agenda. But let me make the point, Simon. While you see 1.86 trillion invested in agro-industrialization, there are still so many other government interventions. For example, the 500 billion we are investing in district and community access roads that are linking farms to markets. This money is not captured as part of the 1.86. The same discussion I know has been raised, for example, on tourism, that we are investing just about 430 billion in tourism, yet we are saying tourism is a critical priority.
Among the ATMs.
Among the ATMs, but government is investing another 2.2 trillion in tourism-related activities in other programs of government.
Which programs?
Tourism roads, for example.
So you mean, you see,
investing...
the trouble, let's start with the
maybe
people arriving in Entebbe.
No, let's have a conversation. I'm
people-
taking interest here.
Yes.
Tourists arriving in Entebbe, they are going to spend 1 hour and a half between Kampala and Chiengera, 14 kilometers. They are going to spend another 2 hours between Kampala and Masaka. If they are going to Kasese and use Fort Portal at 1 day, that's why Rwanda is receiving more money from gorilla tracking, yet Uganda has 60% of those animals. Rwanda shares with Congo 40%. Because someone arriving at Kanombe airport, in the next 1 hour will be tracking gorillas. Yeah. Someone arriving in Kampala at Entebbe will spend another day moving on a very poor road, Mitiana Fort Portal. So it is meaningless for you to go in the Maxon and do a road there as if people are going to be fed there by the very same animals. So I don't understand for you what you think is tourism roads.
Fine. Let's allow him make his submission.
Well, I'll still come back to that. But maybe to quickly respond to Honorable Semudio, I think, we notice the travel time within the Greater Kampala metropolitan area, partly because of good reasons, that people have now more incomes to actually afford vehicles. So we have more vehicles.
So the roads in Kampala are okay.
We have more vehicles than what our road capacity can accommodate because incomes are actually improving.
Seriously?
But most importantly, the government has noticed this and is also expanding the capacity of our transport network, particularly for what Honorable Semudio has raised. You know that very soon, in the next 2 to 3 years, we shall have the Busega-Mpigi Express Highway. You know,
it has stalled.
And if it has not stalled, construction is ongoing. If you have been following, the Kabale airport is actually now complete. Government is stepping up investment in regional aerodromes, meaning that travel from Kampala to other regional destinations is going to improve going forward. But this is the point I wanted to make, Simon.
You might need to get back to the question you posed about Bank of Uganda, the repayment of Bank of Uganda.
Yes.
Yeah. Was the actual payment made? Or you are just...
Yes, it was made. The format of payment is it does not matter. The payment was done. what Honorable Semudio is going in.
You never paid.
Exactly. The payment was done.
You just deferred the payment.
And
it was not deferred.
You brought a resolution to recapitalize the bank so that they have more liquidity for trading.
Which is okay.
No, but you see,
those are operations of monetary and fiscal policy.
Is it true again that a huge chunk of the budget is going to help individuals pay their debts?
A huge chunk of the budget, Simon, like I've told you, is going to the people of Uganda. I wouldn't want you to draw me. I know why my leader.
No, this is important.
Yes,
we want to know where the money is going.
A huge chunk. I would get to that, although I wouldn't want to be driven into that discussion.
You see, Henry,
for example, Honorable, I said we are investing 60 billion in a company, construction company, which government is a shareholder. So government is investing in its own company. Actually,
no, you see, I mean, you need to be sincere.
But
this company was collapsing. It came looking for funding to repay loans. We did not acquire a share because the company was attractive. The reason we acquired the share was because we were putting there our money. We have put 700 trillion in Magora.
No, 700 billion.
700 billion, where we don't even have any formal relationship. You ask government, they say they are still trying to negotiate a memorandum of understanding. Don't present Roko as a very attracting, profit-making company. That is the reason we went there. We actually went there to help them when they were collapsing. It's not an investment.
Yeah, but I think it would also be in the interest of growing our local entrepreneurship.
And
this is a liberal economy.
Just to reiterate on that, look around, and most of our leaders have been to these countries. If you see the companies currently doing work in Uganda, mostly Chinese companies, contractors, these are government companies. Why? Because governments in those countries took deliberate efforts, actually invest, nurture and grow these enterprises. So it is.
But Henry,
yes.
your statement, I think it needs a bit of clarity. Those companies from China, from Europe coming here, they are export credit companies because we get financing and loan from the Chinese government. So they are saying the condition is our companies must be there to create jobs, the same to Europe. So when you say Rocco should be doing work in South Sudan, should be doing work in DRC as an export credit and earning income instead of taking taxpayers' money.
And besides, why wouldn't Rocco go to UDB?
And before he even answers that, you see PDM, if you have a PDM, a program like PDM, without linking production to market, to quality and zoning, in my district, people got PDM money, fine. They invested in cassava growing. The cassava is rotting in the garden because there is no market for cassava.
Well, Henry, you can wind up on your point.
Yes, so the point that I want to make is that all strategic governments actually help their private sector to grow. And once you develop capacity, you can now compete internationally. Most of these companies you see doing work here first did significant work, nurturing and development within their economies. And now they can do what you call exporting of their expertise to other countries. And this is what we expect in all companies, not only one, all companies in which government is investing. We expect to develop as much local capacity as possible.
Did you look into the criteria?
Of course, we are looking into the criteria. Government has a sanctity criteria for prioritizing some of these investments.
Yes.
And the data speaks on why some of these investments have actually been prioritized.
Like Pineti?
I can tell you something. If you looked right now, if you looked at the massive investment that has happened in Lubowa, the progress, I don't know if you have been there and you're not following the news. And
there is no progress. The last time we put their money in a supplementary budget, the permanent secretary in health said actually that money is enough, but you have added another 400. So the experts are saying you put in too much, but you are adding.
Let me tell you, Simon, the same discussion, 2 years down the road, this same discussion is going to come back here. And why I like these discussions, because the results don't lie. We've seen investment in this industry of biopharma. Right now, we are actually having local production of medicine.
Actually, there's production.
Yes, there is production. But production is ongoing. And that factory,
there is no
for
production
example,
there.
Has got about 100 patents of the United States.
What do they produce?
They are producing actually medicines.
Which
tablets,
medicine?
Which medicine?
Capsules. For example, these antibiotics that
But
we can get cheaper on our local market.
They were
There's no
being
single
produced
product.
because all that people are doing
Yes.
is to import raw material, do some little processing, and then package. And that day farmers of yours came here when that was already being done by many people. You come to, without even this one of Mizira, but also in my constituency. So
Well,
you
can't report it.
But Simon, before that, there's a point I wanted to make that Honorable Semudio keeps getting back to on the structure of the budget. Before I was diverted, that I think we need to do more on sensitizing about the structure of our budget. For example, each time my Honorable Semudio, actually, I call him my representative in Parliament.
From Kira?
Yes, I'm from Kira, so he's my member of Parliament. Each time he makes a point, talks about special meals. That we are investing so much in special meals. Actually, special meals is an international budget classification for meals for police and the army. So each time you look at the budget for special meals, it is where we are feeding our men and women in uniform.
What about the manders in Parliament?
It is, you have meetings and conferences.
You see,
under which you are doing much of that.
The good thing.
The point I wanted to make.
The good thing with you finance, and I want to thank you.
Yes.
You aggregate these things and then provide information where the money is going. Please be honest. This money is not going to police and the army.
It is.
We can bring that item and see that every single government department has special meals, from State House to Parliament to Judiciary to everybody. It's not army and police. And this information is provided by you.
Yes.
It's not that we have done any discovery.
Yeah.
Well,
even Parliament has special meals and
Henry, I want to come to you.
Maybe we are policemen now at Parliament.
When you want to When you're looking at this budget critically, do you see a shift in priorities where government wants to put more money? And do these priorities really board with the reality on the ground?
Yes.
Yes, as you wind up.
Yes, thank you very much. I think today's budget speech actually put your question in a very good perspective. And the minister said that now government or Uganda has entered the socio-economic transformation phase. Previously, before entering into this socio-economic transformation phase, government was investing in programs to alleviate poverty, to stabilize the economy, massive investment in security, just to create order within the economy. Now we have entered into a phase where we want to power this economy to a $500 billion economy. And therefore, government priorities have now shifted from largely consumptive areas and massive investment in infrastructure to build a foundation to actually invest in our opportunities that are going to create growth and exports.
Thank you.
Yes.
Julius, when you see this budget, generally speaking, is it one where you signal the public to tighten their belts now that government is seeking to realize more local revenue? And how tenable is the idea of getting 30+ trillion?
Oh, I think for me, we've always tightened our belts. And I'm not seeing a period whereby we shall untighten. No, I don't see that. But I want to encourage Ugandans to prepare themselves for whatever is there. You see, in Uganda they say akanyama katono okayanga kali munkwao. So that katono that is in the budget, I think we need as Ugandans to organize ourselves and say how to get it. Why do I say that? There is a provision in the budget, in the procurement, which says that any contract, 10 million and below at the district, should be given to local registered business youth and people with ability, groups. Any contract at the national level in the ministries below 30 million should be given to the same groups. Now, if we cannot attempt to ensure that these groups are there, they are organized to partake on this opportunity, then they will lose it. And as such, it is going to be difficult for them to benefit from the market, from the budget.
Yeah, but that's been in every budget, highlighting opportunities for groups and...
Yes, and I think our failure to organize and mobilize them properly, our failure to remove politics from this group making has resulted in these groups not benefiting optimally from this particular budget. That's why when you see UDB come and say it is for highly commercial people and big boys and girls, for them they run and get it. But when they come to these other smaller groups like our money, the small and medium enterprise fund, which has not been performing so well, it's because these groups still need to be helped to organize, to mobilize, to get prepared and access these particular resources. That's why I find that the budgeting level, we are missing that. That's why even in PDM, you have these groups that were able to get the money and utilize it properly, and then you have another group that were not sensitized and organized properly, they were able to drink it. So that element of supporting our communities to form into groups, and I don't know why we have not really supported cooperatives, because really cooperatives helped long ago. They helped us. They were able to cushion farmers on prices. They were able to buffer farmers from price instabilities. So these are some of the things that we really need to go back to if we want communities to be able to benefit from the budget. Because a farmer really has no business in looking for prices.
But of the 72.3, how much is there to harness by the local person? Or it's looking more at the giants?
No, it's there. That's what we're talking about. There is money for the giants, but there is money for the smaller groups. The challenge is that...
Yeah, but in terms of percentages, what is in there for what we call Muntu wa Wansi?
We can list down a number of them. We can list what is in the budget, what the paper state. We can list a number of them. Because you have that trillion they are telling you about of the PDM. We know really that it goes down. We have I mean, it's really small. I mean, again, that's what we are saying, that akanyama katono kaya na kali mukwao. Yes. You have resources. There is, I think, a 3 billion for the Juwakali. Again, these are the people who are at the local level. So
are these crumbs or
no? It is
something
small.
to
It is little. It is not enough. It is little. But the most important part is
followed the whole of this week. State House Comptroller has been moving market to market. The president has given them money. The president has given them money. So if PDM is meant to benefit these people and all these other government funds, why do you pick money physically now and go and begin distributing it there?
I mean, I would actually have loved even to triple PDM money. But these small envelopes that come around are the ones that have distorted the whole program. These technocrats will sit and make a very good plan, but when it comes to implementation, that's when everything just goes wrong.
Maybe Simon,
and that's my biggest problem.
Digress a bit on that. What is in for our people? I think there is too much for our people than what we are actually talking about in PDM.
Or there's more for big individuals?
For our people, for the people, for my mother and father and grandmother, your grandfather and your neighbors.
You should become a politician.
There is no.
Please allow him make his
I wanted to make a point that there is 11.5 trillion invested in the people to enable Ugandans access free education in UPE and USE. I don't know if those are people in high classes. Those are our people.
Is that why? Is that the reason they are dropping out? Because there is
that 11.5 trillion is actually providing medicines in Health Center 1, 2, 3, and those being upgraded to Health Center 4 in regional and national referral hospitals. If you go in those hospitals, the high people are actually not lining up in those hospitals. These are my mother, father, and your neighbors within your villages. There is much more money. Actually, what we are talking about in PDM is just targeting the 33.1% of the Ugandans that are actually stuck in the subsistence economy. Those who are only producing
the
for
bottom
consumption.
million.
Exactly. But if you are to enumerate what is available for the people, the infrastructure that government is investing in is to enable people connect from their farms to markets, to take their children.
Okay, let's be specific. Yes, Honorable Kanya, you want to come?
I used to hear of this lecture of President Museveni 30 years ago, how Singapore transformed, South Korea got transformed, Japan, India, because we had a government that was focused on thinking for the people. But I think even economists in this country have lost it. They are following the politics. You see, life in a society.
Is it what is following?
Life in a society is a plan. You have an egg, larva, pupa, and then you have adult. You have UPE, for example. You know that you will have this number of kids enrolling for primary 1. Then you plan for them to complete primary 7. You plan for them to complete senior 4. You plan for them to do senior 6 and join tertiary. You plan for them to complete university. Then from university, when they come out, you plan for them that they will join Boda, for example, for 2 years. And then from Boda, they will form association, then migrate to owning taxis. Some of them will go to cottage industries. So you have cottage industries in all regions with machineries that have undergone training. They enter manufacturing in smaller groups. Then they aggregate to middle manufacturing. Then they move to export. That's how the economy of Asia Tiger were transformed. But in this country, you can even put 10 trillion to a population that's not organized, that's not well planned. We had Bonaba Gagawale, we had INAT, now we had PDM. PDM was planned by 5 years, 5 trillion shillings. But you do not have a production system, drugs, seeds, market, storage. That's why you find that you go to Middle East, you find mangoes of Kenya because our farmers, they throw their trillions. You know, so there is no linkage. So you have boda in Kampala, someone will ride boda for 10 years, die, go off. In Kenya, people will form association because they are riding boda, they will own taxis, they will own rollies, and then they will go to manufacturing. You have importers in Kikubo who have been importing and building, storage building, up is dead capital. The money to which they would enter in manufacturing, packaging beef, and taking to Middle East.
You seem to be reading from a different script from the Minister of Finance. Minister of Finance says we've even graduated from being among the least developed countries. We're now into the middle income status. Could you be painting a different picture?
You know, the statement is very good because you see, when you look at the regional level, you have neighbors who are sick. You have Sudan that is sick. You have Congo that is sick. You have South Sudan that is sick. You have Central Africa that is sick. So if we are only comparing ourselves to Kenya, whose debt to GDP is also quite disturbing. But you go to Tanzania, you see the level of infrastructure, the level of growth. Then you come back to Uganda and talk. You go to Rwanda, a country that recently had war and where it is moving to. But you come to Uganda because we have comparative advantage of good weather. By the way, this country, we don't even need that Minister of Agriculture, I'm telling you. Ugandans are buying their own planting materials. They need better quality pesticides. And in Kenya, we are at the border, they buy it from there. The extension service does not exist in this country. You have people earning salary as extension workers, but in real life, there is no service our people are receiving. If you receive any poor quality, so people are living as if you are in Stone Age hunting. If today you close Ministry of Agriculture, people will do even far much better because they will import their own pesticides that are of high quality. In Tororo, for example, Nagrik design a plan to put up poultry hatchery production for Bukedi. For the last 8 years, every year they put money. There is no completion. They same in a beam, but money is put year in, year out in the ministry.
So where do you derive the hope that the economy is likely to grow by 6.3%?
Thank you, Simon. The economic fundamentals and the data actually confirms that Uganda is estimated, not even projected, to grow at 6.3% by the end of the financial year. Those two words seem brothers but very different. What I want to say is I am almost speaking with certainty that this economy will grow by 6.3% by the end of this, by 30th June, this financial year. And why? Because the economy has actually been able to achieve almost 8.6% growth in the last quarter, quarter 3. And already the numbers are showing us that the economy is going to grow even stronger. But there are even more things to touch, to look at. Forget the statistics of the growth. It took Uganda about 1 century, 100 years, to hit the $1 billion mark in terms of coffee exports. So that means starting last year, 100 years ago, Uganda had never earned $100 billion in exports of coffee. Yeah, it has taken just 1 year.
You see,
let me make the point. Let me make that point.
In 1962, Uganda was exporting 3.2 million bags. That first dam in Jinja was constructed using that money. I spoke to Letab Mayanja. He told me because of the Coffee Stabilization Fund, which was a policy at that time, they even had scholarships. Yes. Look at the benefit. It doesn't matter how much money you have. Look at the population then and today. We had the population of less than 5 million people who were exporting 3.2 million bags. You have a population of 45.9 million people, you are celebrating 7 million bags. Vietnam, 1962, was selling 500,000 bags. Now they are selling more than 24. So look at the growth of Vietnam from 500,000 to 24. For you, are celebrating 7.
Julius, do you get a sense that technocrats are speaking from a completely different platform from what the ordinary Ugandan is going through?
I think the dilemma of the technocrats is that the planning is okay. Wherever you will go in this country, abroad, wherever you will go, they will tell you country Uganda has the best policies in this country, on this planet. We have the best. Why? Because the brains behind this is competent enough to do that. The challenge when it comes to implementation. And if we never fix that, we'll never get out of who we are currently. And I will give you a few examples. You come to 16 trillion of undisbursed loans. You want to ask yourself, why does this happen? It happens simply because sometimes we are rushed to sign loans and yet we are not prepared. You look at, we have been talking about the Entebbe, the Kampala Express Highway. The Kampala Express Highway is that the plan would design, everything is well okay, but to compensate Ugandans on this road is extremely very difficult. Coupled with that, people having realized that now this road is going to pass there, went and started to buy pieces of land. And immediately, once you come to compensate a piece that somebody bought it at 10 million, now he wants 200 million immediately. And I think I'm being told that even the compensation might even be more than the cost of the road. The cost of the road. So if at the end of the day we cannot sit as a nation and decide what do we need to do to acquire right of way, then we are going to remain